Pepper stands in a stunned crowd in Komona. The mayor's about to announce a winner. Every other witch already dropped out or fled. Pepper never even showed off a real potion. She's holding a jar Carrot brought instead. 50,000 ko is on the line. And somehow it's about to be hers. Because that jar isn't a potion at all. It's cat pee and the crowd has no idea. That bluff is what makes the mayor crown her winner. Now jump ahead. Pepper stands in a massive arena. Witches from across Hirva have gathered in Komona's arena. Coriander, shichimi, saffron all lined up to compete. Pepper expects to compete beside them. Instead, the mayor calls her name for something else. Not as a contestant, but as a judge. The witch who won by accident now judges everyone. How does someone this clumsy end up here? It starts months earlier at a cottage in Squirrel's End. One orange cat, one flying potion, and countless bad decisions. This is Pepper and Carrot, and those accidents begin inside her cottage. One that was never meant to leave the house. Let's go back to where it actually starts. Late at night, Pepper leans low over her cauldron, carefully dropping in the very last ingredient of a potion she spent hours perfecting. She studies the bubbling mixture with a doubtful frown, worried out loud that it's probably still not strong enough to actually fly. More drops plop into the brew, and the liquid shifts color as she keeps adjusting the recipe, chasing exactly the right balance. This is Pepper's homemade potion of flight, and after all this trial and error, she's determined to finally get the formula right. Pepper steps back and smiles, genuinely satisfied that the potion finally looks exactly the way a working brew is supposed to look. But she notices Carrot creeping closer behind her, eyeing the bubbling jar with the kind of curiosity that always spells trouble. No, don't even think about it, she warns him sharply, already knowing exactly what her cat is about to try, one more time, just to be safe. Carrot doesn't listen for even a second. He leaps straight into the untested potion with one loud, unmistakable splash of liquid. Almost instantly, Carrot lifts off the ground, drifting upward as the potion's magic takes hold of his entire startled body, rippling in the sudden breeze. Pepper stares up at her floating cat, caught somewhere between total fury and complete amazement that the potion actually worked. She never quite expected either reaction. Happy? She snaps, hands on her hips, clearly unimpressed that her test subject helped himself without asking her permission first, not that he seems to notice or care. One successful test leaves Pepper staring at a fully airborne orange cat, while Carrot seems perfectly pleased with the result. Pepper's home sits behind a hand-painted sign warning strangers to keep out, a clear signal that a witch lives and works here. Inside, shelf after shelf is lined with bottles of bubbling, unstable liquid, each one representing a different half-finished experiment she's never quite abandoned. The whole lab hums quietly with the sound of potions gently boiling away, a soundtrack Pepper barely even notices anymore, a strange kind of lullaby by now. It's just another ordinary afternoon of brewing at Squirrel's End, the kind of quiet routine her whole life is built around. Pepper has labeled dozens of experimental potions over the years, and every single bottle on this shelf is wilder than the last. Names like Fire Dance, Deep Ocean, and Ultra Blue are scrawled across the labels, proof of just how much she experiments. Magenta X and Crimson sit right beside bottles marked Nature and Orange Top, a whole rainbow of half-tested magical ideas, waiting for someone brave enough to test them. Every single bottle represents a different failed or half-finished experiment, evidence of a witch who never quite stops tinkering with her craft. Somewhere behind her, liquid starts glugging steadily out of an unattended bottle, slowly draining away while nobody's watching closely enough to notice. Pepper is far too absorbed in her current work to notice anything at all happening on the shelves behind her right now. The glugging keeps going, bottle after bottle quietly disappearing while she stays completely focused on whatever she's currently brewing, too distracted to look up. Someone clearly is helping himself to the entire shelf while Pepper's back stays turned, one bottle after another quietly vanishing, one careless slurp at a time. It's Carrot, of course, gulping down potion after potion as if they're nothing more than colorful, harmless snacks for a cat. He doesn't care what's actually inside each bottle, only that it's something new, colorful, and completely untested by anyone else. The label never seems to matter to him. One potion splatters messily as he knocks it back too fast, clearly more interested in speed than in any caution, a small puddle spreading across the floor. He smacks his lips afterward, looking thoroughly satisfied, with no idea what mixing a dozen potions might actually do to him. The mixed potions start reacting inside him almost immediately, bubbling and fizzing somewhere deep down in his very unsettled stomach, a low, ominous rumble building steadily. Strange bubbling sounds build louder and louder, an obvious warning sign that something is about to go very wrong very soon. A colorful, sloppy mess follows soon after, exactly the kind of chaos Pepper has long since learned to expect from her cat. Colored bubbles and splashes keep erupting around Carrot as the mixed potions work their chaotic way through him. It's market day in the busy streets of Komona, and Pepper is out shopping for ingredients she needs for her next potion. She politely asks the vendor for 8 pumpkin stars, and he immediately sets out the requested ingredients for her. The total comes to 60 ko, quite a bit more money than Pepper actually has in her purse right now, and her stomach sinks a little. Oh dear, she mutters, staring at the price as the 60 ko total leaves her visibly worried. Unable to afford the full order, Pepper apologetically cuts it down from 8 pumpkin stars to only 4. The vendor grumbles under his breath, clearly annoyed by the sudden haggling and the much smaller sale he's left with this morning. Saffron struts in right behind her and orders 2 dozen of everything, premium quality, without even glancing at the price tag. She turns to Pepper with a smug little grin and asks whether business is booming out in the countryside these days. Saffron casually mentions tomorrow's potion challenge, clearly assuming that everyone in Komona already knows exactly what she's referring to today, of all days. Pepper has absolutely no idea what challenge Saffron is talking about, and the confusion shows plainly all over her puzzled face. She spots a poster nearby announcing the Komona Po Challenge, with a grand prize of 50,000 ko for the winner. Lucky me, I still have a full day to prepare, she says out loud, already talking herself into entering the contest. An idea strikes Pepper right there in the middle of the market, and her whole face lights up with sudden confidence. She's suddenly certain she knows exactly what kind of potion could actually stand a chance of winning this whole contest, and beat Saffron once and for all. Carrot, get ready, we're hunting ingredients together, she announces, already mapping out the entire dangerous trip in her head, without a second thought. The two of them set off together before the sun has even fully risen over the forest of Squirrel's End, with the whole day still ahead of them. First on her list is a pearl of mist, the kind of ingredient that only forms inside a black storm cloud. Pepper braves the swirling, dangerous clouds herself, determined to collect this rare ingredient no matter what it ends up costing her. Next, she pushes deep into a haunted jungle, hunting through the thick undergrowth for a handful of rare red berries, ignoring every sound around her. The jungle is eerie and genuinely unsettling, but Pepper pushes through anyway, focused entirely on the ingredients she still needs, one careful step after another. From there, it's off to volcanic Phoenix Valley, where she carefully collects a few precious eggshells from the smoking ash. The heat around the active volcanoes is intense, but Pepper decides the rare ingredient is worth every uncomfortable, sweaty minute, and she pushes on regardless. Her final stop is tracking down a young dragon cow, just to collect a single, precious drop of its rare milk, no matter how far the trek takes her. After clouds, jungle, volcanoes, and a dragon cow, Pepper finally has every rare ingredient written on her list. Back home, thoroughly exhausted, Pepper finally combines every single one of her hard-won ingredients into one final, careful brew ready for the judges to try. She takes a triumphant sip, closes her eyes, and declares the finished potion to be absolutely, perfectly done at last, or so she genuinely believes for a moment. Then comes the twist. It isn't a magic potion at all, just the strongest cup of black coffee anyone has ever brewed. All that dangerous traveling, and all she's actually made is fuel to stay awake and try again through the night, one bitter, caffeinated sip at a time. It's 2 a.m, and Pepper has just finished mixing together her newest and most ambitious creation yet again, the candle burning low beside her. Pepper believes this newest potion can finally match her skill against Saffron at the contest waiting the next day. But before she can celebrate, she realizes she still needs a proper test subject to actually try the potion on, and there's really only one obvious choice. Carrot, she calls out into the dark, empty house, fully expecting him to come running the way he always does, the whole house staying stubbornly silent. Carrot is nowhere to be found, not even curled up in his usual favorite hiding spot underneath the bed. Pepper searches every corner of the house, growing more and more desperate to track her missing cat down before the night is over. Finally, she pulls out her absolute last resort, a bag of Carrot's favorite cat food, rattling it loudly across the room. Carrot comes strutting in almost immediately, singing quietly to himself, completely unbothered by the very late hour or the mess around him. Pepper calls Carrot her favorite assistant and proudly presents him with her latest and most ambitious masterpiece, still warm from the cauldron. She holds out a glowing, unstable-looking potion and calls it, grandly, the potion of genius, her proudest creation yet by far. Take a sip, she tells him, and if it actually works, you should have a genuine, honest stroke of genius, she says, practically holding her breath. Carrot, never one to turn down something new, drinks the entire potion down without giving it a second thought at all. Almost instantly, Carrot begins pulling wooden letter blocks together and arranging them carefully across the floor, one piece at a time. Pepper watches in stunned silence as her cat spells out something that genuinely looks like an actual, coherent English word, one letter at a time. You right? She gasps, hardly able to believe what she's watching her own cat actually do right in front of her. Carrot keeps sliding more blocks into place while Pepper watches the growing sequence and tries to understand it. Pepper tries guessing what he means, energy, eternal emotion, but none of her guesses actually seem to fit the pattern, running out of patience with every guess. This really doesn't make any sense, she groans, completely stumped by her own cat's apparent, sudden burst of pure genius, throwing her hands up in frustration. Frustrated and out of ideas, she decides the potion must be another failure and gives up entirely for the night, another idea gone nowhere fast. Pepper gives up on that potion, wishes Carrot good night, and decides she still has time to invent another entry. Outside the snow-covered cottage, Pepper and Carrot bound out to the fresh snow together. The two of them leap and tumble through the deep snow, clearly delighted by the cold. Together they build a snowman, propping a broom against it as a finishing touch. Pepper and Carrot keep playing among the snowy trees, snow flying between them as they go. Pepper stretches out flat on the snowy ground with Carrot standing close beside her. She sweeps her arms and legs through the snow, carving out a snow angel beneath her. A round, glassy bubble now surrounds the two of them as they keep playing in the snow. Inside that same curved bubble, Pepper and Carrot huddle close together, still surrounded by snow. A bright golden glow suddenly surrounds Pepper and Carrot, lighting up the whole snowy scene. Silhouetted against that warm light, the two of them stand together as the glow grows brighter. As the light softens, Pepper and Carrot's faces appear close together, both looking upward. Carrot moves toward an open doorway while Pepper's face lingers beside him in the same moment. The cottage sits quietly under a heavy blanket of snow, surrounded by snow-covered trees. A closer look reveals the same snowy cottage, still and peaceful in the winter light. The snowy cottage reappears, this time enclosed within the curved glass of a round globe. Inside that glass globe, the little cottage rests in snow as the words "Happy Holidays" appear. Pepper wakes up with a sudden jolt, slowly realizing she must have fallen asleep with her bedroom window wide open all night. Through that open window, strangely, she can somehow see the entire distant city of Komona spread out far below her, as if it were right next door. Then it hits her all at once. Today is the potion contest, and she's completely missed her only chance to prepare for it. "Where am I?" she cries, still half asleep and completely disoriented by the view of Komona below her. It turns out Carrot secretly carried her all the way to the contest grounds while she was still fast asleep, without waking her even once. He even thought to bring along her clothes, her hat, and a potion to present for the whole important occasion, thinking of everything she might need. Pepper calls Carrot fantastic when she sees that he brought her clothes, hat, and a jar for the contest. She reaches into the bag to check exactly which potion her cat decided to grab for her before they left. "What?" Pepper blurts out the instant she gets a proper look at whatever is actually sitting inside that particular jar, her stomach already sinking with dread. Before she can react any further, the mayor of Komona steps forward to formally declare the whole contest officially open, the crowd falling quiet around them. He proudly announces that the town is hosting no fewer than 4 different witches for this very first edition of the contest. The crowd settles in eagerly, ready to give a huge round of applause to whoever impresses them the most today, the plaza buzzing with anticipation. The mayor introduces Coriander from the Great Technologists Union first, calling her both ravishing and remarkably ingenious in front of the whole crowd. Next comes Komona's own local witch, Saffron, followed immediately by Shichimi from the distant land of the setting moons far away. Finally, Pepper is introduced as the contest's 4th and final participant, representing the small, modest forest of squirrels and, far from the fancier city schools. Coriander goes first, proudly unveiling her potion of zombification while the crowd erupts into thunderous, delighted applause almost immediately after, the sound echoing across the whole plaza. The mayor is completely floored by the demonstration, calling Coriander's zombie potion nothing short of miraculous in front of everyone, the crowd nodding along in agreement. Saffron cuts in almost immediately, insisting the crowd save its loudest applause for her own demonstration instead of Coriander's entirely, cutting off any chance of rebuttal. She unveils her own creation, the potion of poshness, boldly promising it could make all of Komona instantly rich and wealthy. The crowd goes absolutely wild for it, and just like that, Coriander is officially eliminated from the contest on the spot. The pressure now shifts squarely onto Shichimi, who admits she didn't even realize a demonstration was actually required of her, caught completely off guard by the pressure. She flatly refuses to go through with it, insisting over and over that her potion is simply too dangerous to show. Saffron snatches the potion away from her anyway, mocking Shichimi loudly for stalling in front of the entire watching crowd, clearly enjoying every second of the spotlight. Too late, Shichimi warns everyone around her. That particular potion was specifically brewed to summon giant, uncontrollable monsters into the plaza. A massive creature suddenly bursts into the plaza, sending the entire crowd screaming and scattering in every direction at once, tables and stalls overturned in the panic. In the middle of all that chaos, it's suddenly awkwardly Pepper's turn to step forward and present her own entry, whether she's ready or not. She shrugs it off, figuring her mystery potion will at least be worth a few good laughs at this point, and honestly, that might be enough. The mayor doesn't stick around to watch anything else. He simply tells everyone to run and save themselves right now, not waiting around to see what happens next. Pepper sighs, already well used to everyone bailing on her right before her turn actually comes up in these things, a familiar, tired kind of pattern by now. At least now she has a pretty good idea of exactly what to do with whatever potion Carrot brought along, a plan already forming in her head. She marches straight up toward the oversized, posh, zombified monster now towering menacingly over the entire panicked plaza around her, ready to face it head-on. "Want to try one last potion?" she asks it calmly, holding the mysterious jar up like a genuine, serious challenge to it. She warns the creature to read the label very carefully before she decides to pour the whole thing all over it. The creature actually backs off at that, and the whole town of Komona is saved from any further total destruction, the crowd cautiously creeping back to watch. The mayor formally declares Pepper the winner, publicly crediting her mystery potion with saving the entire town of Komona itself, the crowd erupting into applause once more. The twist lands hard when it finally comes out. It wasn't a potion at all, just Carrot's leftover pee sample from a routine vet visit. Pepper calls out for Carrot, her voice echoing through every empty room of the otherwise quiet house around her once again. "Carrot," she calls again as she keeps searching, but the sleeping cat still gives her no answer. There's no sign of him anywhere nearby, not in any of his usual familiar hiding spots around the whole house, not a single meow in response. Determined to find him, she sets off through the whole house and the surrounding yard herself, calling out his name, refusing to give up the search. She eventually finds him curled up fast asleep somewhere quiet, looking completely and blissfully at peace with the entire world, as if none of the chaos ever happened. "Found you. Nap time is over, time to go home," she tells him, gently nudging her sleepy cat wide awake, one gentle nudge at a time. Just then, without any warning at all, a sudden burst of magic crackles unexpectedly around both of them at once, the air itself crackling with energy. In a single bright flash, the two of them are pulled somewhere else entirely, far away from home together instantly, neither of them fully understanding how. They land somewhere completely unfamiliar, dust and loose debris settling slowly around them both as a strange hum of leftover magic lingers in the air. Strange glowing light pulses steadily from somewhere deep within a hidden, mysterious cave stretching out ahead of them both, flickering off the damp stone walls. Pepper looks around, genuinely unsure how the two of them even ended up here in the first place at all. Nothing here looks even remotely familiar. Whatever this strange place actually is, it's clearly nothing at all like anywhere she's ever set foot before in her life. Tiny fairies suddenly appear around them, warmly welcoming the pair to the magical fairy cave deep beneath the earth's surface, their tiny wings glowing softly in the dark. They offer a single wish, anything at all that Pepper could possibly desire, promised to become completely real on the spot. Pepper stammers awkwardly, clearly caught completely off guard by such an enormous and sudden offer she never once expected, not sure what to even say. Carrot, meanwhile, just meows once, then promptly falls right back asleep beside her without a single care in the world, completely indifferent to the offer on the table. Pepper slowly realizes something obvious, that sometimes the very best wish is simply for absolutely nothing to change at all, a lesson that arrives a little too late. But then, out loud, in front of everyone, she actually says her real wish anyway, to go back to sleep herself. It's a completely wasted opportunity, and on some level she clearly knows that herself already, even as she says it, even as the fairies wait patiently nearby. Carrot, blissfully unaware of the missed magical chance, just keeps right on snoring peacefully beside her the entire time, not a single worry crossing his mind. Pepper suddenly realizes her birthday is coming up soon, and she doesn't really have anyone at all to celebrate with. It's a quiet, genuinely sad admission for her to make, even just to herself and her half-asleep, uninterested orange cat, a rare crack in her usual confidence. Carrot doesn't offer much in the way of comfort, but at least he's sitting there patiently, actually listening to her, which is honestly better than nothing at all. She decides firmly right then and there that she isn't going to let the loneliness get the better of her, no matter how empty the house feels tonight. An idea hits her out of nowhere: invite the witches she met back at the potion contest to celebrate together, the same 3 witches from that chaotic day. Pepper credits Carrot with the idea, then starts planning invitations for the 3 witches from the contest. Pepper carefully writes out invitations for Saffron, Shichimi, and Coriander, one for each of them, in her very neatest handwriting, folding each one with real care. She sends the invitations off right away, feeling genuinely hopeful for the first time in what feels like a long while. By the day of the party, Pepper has decorated her home and prepared the table for her invited guests. Decorations hang from the ceiling, snacks are laid out neatly on the table, and the whole house looks absolutely perfect, every last touch exactly where she wants it. All that's left for her to do now is simply wait patiently for her guests to actually arrive at the door. With the decorations hanging and refreshments ready, Pepper has nothing left to do except wait for everyone to arrive. Minutes pass and nobody actually arrives at her door. No matter how closely or how hopefully she keeps on watching, the silence growing heavier with each passing one. I'm certain, they'll come, Pepper keeps repeating to herself, desperately trying to stay confident as the clock ticks, though her voice wavers just slightly. The confidence in her voice starts cracking the longer the empty, awkward silence stretches on around her lonely little house. Still, absolutely no one shows up at her door, no matter how much longer she keeps waiting by the window, not even a knock breaking the silence. How could they do this to me? She finally cries out, clearly hurt and thoroughly furious at being left alone, her voice cracking on the last word. With nobody left to actually count on, she reaches instead for a very different, much darker kind of book entirely, one she's never actually opened before tonight. The book's cover reads Incantations for Demons of Kauza, Volume 1, revealing exactly what Pepper intends to summon. She starts reading the spell out loud, and the whole room slowly begins to hum with dark, unfamiliar energy, filling every corner around her. A monster suddenly materializes right there in front of her, summoned straight out of the pages of the old book itself. Monsters of Kauza at your service, it announces in a low, distorted, unsettling growl that fills the entire room around her. The summoned monster asks who Pepper wants attacked, waiting beside the candlelit table for her command. Pepper's birthday, it turns out, is about to take a very Kauza kind of unexpected, monster-sized turn for the worse, whether she's ready for it or not. It's the day after Pepper's disastrous, demon-summoning birthday party, and something in the sky immediately catches her attention, just like always. She spots a strange signal glowing steadily over the mountains, the forest, and the clouds above Squirrel's End, impossible to miss. She can't quite figure out why that particular warning signal would suddenly be active this early in the morning. Realization hits her hard all at once and her stomach drops with a sudden, sinking "oh no," a phrase that says everything at once. It turns out she completely forgot to switch off her house's magical security system before falling asleep the night before. She's genuinely thrilled that her invited guests actually showed up after all, despite everything that went wrong during the storm. She apologizes for the trouble, casually asking if everyone only got hit with a little unexpected light rain, trying to keep her tone light. To smooth things over, she's already prepared a pot of tea to help lift everyone's spirits back up, a small gesture, but a genuine one. Outside the cottage, Carrot, Yuzu, Truffle, and Mango happily chase one another through the grass beside the pond. Inside, Saffron, Coriander, and Shichimi sit together over tea while Pepper keeps herself apart at the end of the table. Pepper curls behind her raised knees, watching the others and believing that her disastrous security spell made them hate her. She silently calls herself stupid, convinced the chance to become friends has already slipped away. Meanwhile, the 4 animal companions gather outside, with Carrot appearing to share an idea involving brightly colored mushrooms. Carrot suddenly glows with excitement while Yuzu, Truffle, and Mango stare at him in surprise. A simple diagram contrasts dangerous spotted mushrooms with plain ones, then shows a potion making the spotted variety safe to eat. The other animals crowd around Carrot as he finishes presenting the tempting mushroom plan to the group. Suddenly Carrot, along with Saffron's dog Yuzu and both Shichimi's and Coriander's pets, all start acting very strangely, none of it making immediate sense. Yuzu barks oddly, Truffle makes strange, distressed sounds, and Mango clucks like something has gone seriously wrong. 3 very different, very worried sounds at once. Saffron immediately recognizes the danger and shouts for everyone to get to the laboratory right away, her voice cutting through the panic. She warns, urgently, that whatever is affecting the animals could actually turn out to be genuinely lethal, loud enough for everyone to hear clearly. The witches rush together, working quickly to figure out exactly what's wrong with the affected animals, working as fast as they possibly can. It's a tense, hurried scramble to identify a working cure before anything gets any worse for the pets, every second clearly counting. Between Pepper, Saffron, Shichimi, and Coriander, there's no shortage of combined magical knowledge to draw on together, more than enough to work with, in theory. Together, the 4 witches get to work searching through everything they know for a remedy that might actually save the animals. Super! We're the best! Saffron and Pepper cheer triumphantly once their combined remedy actually starts working, relieved that their combined effort actually paid off. Shichimi and Coriander celebrate right along with them, thrilled that all the affected animals have been properly cured, relief plain on both their faces. Pepper still feels a little bad that they couldn't avoid some of the potion's unpleasant side effects entirely, even with the crisis now resolved. Shichimi reassures her gently that the fur and feather loss is only temporary and will grow back quickly, a small comfort in an otherwise messy night. A small palm-covered island sits in calm turquoise water beneath a bright, wide-open sky. Pepper lies stretched out on the warm sand, sunbathing beside Carrot and a broom propped nearby. She stretches her arms behind her head, relaxing fully in the sun on the beach. Suddenly Pepper and Carrot both freeze, eyes wide and mouths open in obvious shock. A massive creature's jaw opens wide enough to swallow the whole tiny island and its palm tree. Underwater, a huge fish-like creature bares its teeth as it bursts up toward the surface. The same enormous creature's head breaks the surface, sending a wall of water into the air. Seen fully underwater, the giant blue creature swims past with wide eyes and a toothy grin. Later, in warm evening light, Pepper walks along the sand as small creatures move around her. She runs and splashes happily along the shoreline with Carrot bounding right beside her. Up close, Carrot and a small creature perch near Pepper against the glowing evening light. Standing in the shallow water, Pepper watches a small blue creature float close beside her. Carrot creeps low across the sand, watching something out in the water ahead of him. Underwater, the same giant blue creature swims near a small clawed creature drifting close by. The giant creature's mouth looms large again as smaller sea creatures gather around it. A huge splash erupts from the water, sending fish, a turtle, and other creatures flying into the air. Pepper and Carrot swim together underwater, surrounded by a whole crowd of colorful sea creatures. From a distance, the two of them glide through the water beneath a bright, cloud-streaked sky. A large school of fish swims past as the giant creature's shape looms in the background. The giant creature drifts calmly underwater beside the small blue creature as everything settles into stillness. Cayenne tells Pepper flatly and directly that she brings shame to the very name of Kaoza, her tone leaving no room for argument. Thyme agrees completely, insisting that a true witch of Kaoza has to command fear, obedience, and respect from others. Cumin points out, pointedly, that Pepper instead offered tea and cupcakes to the demons she once summoned herself, a detail she clearly hasn't forgotten. Pepper tries to protest the accusation, but her 3 godmothers clearly aren't in the mood to hear any excuses. Thyme reminds Pepper that she's genuinely talented, but also their only successor, which comes with very real responsibility, words meant to steady her, not scold her. Pepper insists firmly that she doesn't want to be mean, that cruelty goes against everything she personally believes in. Cayenne cuts her off sharply, threatening to revoke all of her magical powers if she keeps arguing back, her patience visibly running out. Thyme announces that Cumin will now shadow Pepper closely, helping to train her and report back on her progress. Cumin explains that the newly crowned king of Akron is far too kind and gentle with his own subjects. According to Cumin, the people of Akron need a king they fear, giving a Kaoza witch influence over the powerful monarch. Pepper's very first assigned mission is to track down and properly intimidate the young monarch himself, whether she feels ready for it or not. Cumin insists firmly that a true witch of Kaoza always holds real influence over the powerful, a lesson she's clearly meant to absorb. Pepper finally locates the king and is genuinely surprised by just how young he actually turns out to be. She quickly realizes that the two of them must be roughly the exact same age, a detail that clearly catches her off guard. Cumin, watching impatiently from nearby, urges Pepper to hurry up and actually scare the king already, her patience already running thin. But Pepper hesitates noticeably, clearly not feeling the confidence that Cumin is expecting from her right now, her usual boldness nowhere to be found. Instead of intimidating him at all, Pepper quietly reflects on how genuinely alike the two of them really are. Both of them are young, both essentially alone, and both trapped by roles neither one of them ever chose. She starts to see the king less as a target to scare and more as someone she truly understands. Whatever Cumin was actually hoping for from this mission, this clearly isn't the intimidation lesson she had in mind. Back home afterward, Thyme is waiting impatiently to hear exactly how the whole mission actually went, arms crossed, waiting for a full report. The verdict comes back quickly: total failure, with absolutely no fear or intimidation successfully delivered at all, exactly the outcome nobody wanted to see. Thyme sighs heavily, admitting there's clearly still a very long way to go, and a lot of work ahead. Pepper's first real test as a witch of Causa has not gone the way her three godmothers had wanted. Cayenne rattles off a long list of failed potions cluttering the house: laughing potions, mega hair growth, stink bubble, and more. Pepper already knows the drill by heart. A true witch of Causa supposedly wouldn't make potions like these anyway. Cayenne agrees completely with that assessment, then announces she's heading off to run errands at the market in Komona. She instructs Pepper firmly to make the whole cluttered mess disappear while she's gone, and without using any magic. Pepper immediately tries to zap the entire mess away with one quick, effortless burst of magic instead, the same instinct she always reaches for first. It doesn't work the way she'd hoped it would, and she's forced to reconsider her entire approach, a rare moment of magic actually failing her. Burying everything by hand instead, she quickly realizes, is going to take hours of genuinely exhausting physical effort. She grumbles out loud about the blisters she's already anticipating from all that upcoming digging work, before she's even picked up a shovel. She remembers the household rule clearly enough: a true witch of Causa never uses magic for daily chores. Frustrated by the unfairness of it all, she decides to prove a point and calls for Carrot to bring a specific spellbook. She calls for Book 7 of Causa, the volume devoted to gravitational fields, and Carrot brings it over. With a single confident incantation, Pepper deliberately summons a Causan black hole to dispose of the entire pile. What Pepper has actually created, it turns out, is a small, swirling Causan black hole right in the yard. Cayenne suddenly reappears out of nowhere, revealing that she never actually left for the market at all, a smug look already forming on her face. She questions Pepper pointedly, asking whether summoning an actual black hole is really what "don't use magic" was supposed to mean. It turns out Cayenne knew all along that leaving Pepper completely unsupervised was simply never a realistic option. Cayenne examines the newly formed black hole with a critical eye, noting that its mass is honestly far too insufficient. She points out clinically that the gravitational field is weak, and even the closest stable orbit is much too small. With practiced, effortless ease, she adjusts the whole thing herself, quietly fixing what Pepper's spout wrong, barely breaking a sweat in the process. A slightly larger event horizon, she explains matter-of-factly, would have actually done the trick from the very start. The orbiting bottles spin out of control around a dizzy Carrot, proving that Cayenne's elegant calculation has become dangerously unstable. Cayenne casts Curse Canceller Maximus, shutting down the black hole before the flying potion bottles cause even more damage. The cancelled spell drops the entire colorful load across the yard, coating everything in a sparkling, smoking sea of discarded potion. Pepper and Cayenne are left shoveling the enormous mess by hand, exactly the punishment Pepper tried to avoid. Pepper is having the best holiday she can honestly remember, and she makes absolutely sure to say so out loud. She thanks Coriander warmly for inviting her and the others to come stay together at her place, grateful for a place to actually unwind. The whole visit feels genuinely special to Pepper, a real welcome break from her usual chaotic routine back home. Coriander welcomes the compliment while her unusual household staff remain busy all around the visiting witches. Coriander admits, a little sheepishly, that she was worried her monstrous household staff might come across as intimidating to guests. A whole group of her creatures suddenly appears with a loud burst of sound, and Pepper isn't fazed by any of it. She reassures Coriander sincerely that the monsters actually feel welcoming, and that everyone genuinely feels right at home. Shichimi compliments the interior decoration warmly, calling it both wonderfully refined and genuinely cozy at the same time. Coriander admits that after living here for so long, it all sometimes starts to feel a little too ordinary to her. Shichimi says she'd honestly love to live in this kind of comfort herself someday, if circumstances allowed it. But she quickly adds that a true witch of isn't really supposed to live that kind of lifestyle at all. Pepper laughs at that, noting how much it sounds exactly like something her own strict godmothers would say too. Coriander tries gently to refocus the group, reminding everyone that they're nearly finished with their current shared quest. Pepper shrugs the comment off, joking that this particular quest has honestly felt pretty easy for them so far. Before she can even finish that thought, something bursts loudly and unexpectedly into the middle of the room. Coriander and Shichimi both react in genuine alarm at the sudden, noisy interruption breaking their quiet evening, neither of them expecting the sudden noise. Coriander realizes with growing dread that it's already too late to stop whatever is now happening, her expression shifting instantly. Shichimi cries out in real dismay as the whole situation spirals rapidly further out of control around them. Coriander vows angrily that whatever caused this particular mess is absolutely going to pay for it, her voice sharp with real anger. Pepper quickly steps in to intervene, firmly ordering Carrot to drop whatever he happens to be holding right away. It turns out this entire dramatic scene has actually just been part of a tabletop game the whole time. The game itself is called Citadels and Phoenixes, complete with its own set of detailed miniature figures, pieces scattered carefully across a small table. Carrot, it becomes clear, had knocked over Coriander's prized Princess Coriander game piece, clearly upset on Pepper's behalf. Pepper reassures her fiercely protective cat there's no real danger at all, they're only playing a simple game. Cumin announces cheerfully that the holidays are officially over, and it's time to start a course on ink potions. The planned lesson is supposed to cover the primary ingredients used in several classic, traditional potion recipes, the kind of detail witches are expected to know. Partway through preparing everything, Cumin suddenly realizes she's completely out of powdered dragon's tooth for the lesson, a problem that threatens to derail the whole lesson. Without that specific ingredient on hand, there's really no proper way to continue the lesson as planned, not without the right ingredient in hand. Cumin turns and asks both Cayenne and Thyme if either of them would go fetch some more for her. Both of them flatly refuse right away, completely unwilling to deal with the bitter cold weather outside, leaving the errand entirely up to someone else. Pepper volunteers instead without hesitation, sounding confident she can handle the whole errand herself without any real trouble. She heads out the door equipped with a solid pair of pliers and some basic protective body armor. The task turns out to be considerably harder in practice than Pepper had originally expected it to be at all. Hunting down an actual, living air dragon proves far more complicated than she'd casually anticipated beforehand, even with all her careful preparation. Getting close enough to it to safely extract a single tooth turns out to be its own separate challenge entirely. Pepper starts to slowly realize that this simple errand isn't nearly as easy as she'd first assumed it would be. Carrot suddenly bolts away in fear, even though swamp dragons are supposedly well known for their calm, docile nature. Pepper calls out after him, trying to convince her frightened cat that there's really nothing here to be afraid of. Moving on next to a lightning dragon, she starts to seriously doubt whether her current tools are even right for this particular job. Every single dragon she encounters along the way seems to require a completely different approach than the one before it. At one particular point, thoroughly worn out from the effort, Pepper decides the whole task is simply too difficult. But she quickly reminds herself out loud that Pepper never actually gives up on anything she's set out to do. She pushes forward doggedly through the long, cold night, determined to finish exactly what she started, no matter how tired she gets. By the next morning, a rooster's loud crow finally signals that a brand new day has properly arrived. Pepper returns home triumphantly, proudly announcing that she's collected at least 100 separate dragon's teeth along the way. She's clearly quite proud of her own accomplishment, expecting Cumin to be thoroughly impressed by the huge haul. Cumin gently points out one rather important detail that Pepper had apparently missed entirely during her whole adventure. Dragon's tooth, it turns out, is actually just the common name of a particular plant, not a literal fang. Pepper walks through a shadowy, dusk-toned forest, moving carefully past a towering tree trunk. She continues deeper into the same quiet forest, the trees glowing faintly in blue and purple light. She pauses and looks down as a glowing pink shape opens what looks like a wide, toothy mouth nearby. The pink, glowing shape flares open fully, radiant light spilling out around its jagged, tooth-lined edges. A large hand reaches toward a glowing orb in the sky as Pepper looks up at the same light. She flies on her broom through a starry night sky, soaring above the dark treetops below. She continues on foot across rocky, uneven ground, still surrounded by the same dim evening light. A small, glowing orange light appears nearby, casting a warm glow against the darker landscape around her. Pepper and Carrot both stare in surprise at a glowing pink orb that has appeared before them. Their faces light up with the pink glow as they lean in to look closer at it. Pepper looks down at the glowing orb, its pink light reflecting clearly across her face. Her expression shifts as a green, shimmering light now plays across her face instead. A small spark of white light glows in the space between Pepper and Carrot. Inside the glowing orb, a tiny scene appears and Pepper watches it with wide, amazed eyes. Carrot reacts too, surrounded by the same sparkling light drifting around him. Colorful light swirls around both Pepper and Carrot as they take in the glowing display together. Pepper suddenly looks alarmed as a small, glowing red creature appears in the darkness nearby. Carrot looks straight up, clearly startled by something looming above him in the night. A small, worried figure looks upward through the dim blue light around them. A large, insect-like creature looms directly above them, its shape outlined against the dark sky. Pepper and Carrot huddle close together, clearly frightened by the large shape looming over them. A massive, clawed limb reaches down slowly out of the darkness above them. Two enormous eyes stare out of the darkness, fixed directly on Pepper and Carrot. A bright, glowing orb pulses with light, illuminating the darkness immediately around it. Small, glowing green creatures with red eyes cluster together in the surrounding darkness. More of the same glowing creatures gather close, their green light flickering steadily in the dark. Pepper's face is lit by the glow of an orb she now holds carefully in her hand. She walks forward through a cave, leading Carrot on a leash while a large spider creature moves ahead of them. Pepper continues through the cave, holding up a glowing lantern to light the way for both of them. The cave opens into a wide chamber where glowing threads stretch and shimmer across the space. She stands still, taking in the glowing, web-like strands spun throughout the chamber around her. Pepper and Carrot stand together in the cave as glowing webs and small creatures surround them on every side. High above the clouds, a small floating island drifts quietly, a little house perched at its center, drifting slowly in the open air. The island drifts off into the distance as a small bird flies past overhead. The scene shifts down to a colorful street lined with tall, narrow houses in a busy town, shutters and rooftops catching the afternoon light. Inside, tea is poured out as Saffron flatly Pepper, no, 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 and no, her tone leaving little room for argument. Pepper explains that she isn't learning anything from her godmothers, since they take over every lesson themselves, insisting they always take control before she can. Saffron listens over tea, clearly reluctant to get personally involved in mediating a family dispute, her expression giving little away. Saffron tells Pepper plainly to start acting like a witch and talk to her godmothers straight, like a grown woman, her voice firm and matter of fact. After a pause, Saffron gives in, agreeing that she'll come along and help talk things through with them, her arms crossed but her decision made. Out in the forest, Thyme reacts sharply to hearing that Pepper feels she isn't learning anything at all, her eyes narrowing at the accusation. Thyme presses further, accusing Pepper of not even being brave enough to come tell them herself, her tone growing sharper with every word. Thyme grumbles that if her back weren't acting up, she'd teach Pepper a real lesson herself, rubbing at her back for emphasis. Cayenne steps in, telling Thyme to calm down while admitting that Pepper actually has a point, her hand raised to settle the argument. Cayenne suggests they seek out the sage of the mountain, whose counsel could prove genuinely valuable, his wisdom said to be worth the climb. Thyme mocks the idea, wondering aloud if the girls are old enough to understand his teachings. Pepper snaps back that she's more than ready, and Saffron finds herself pulled along for the climb, determination written plainly across her face. Thyme sends them off toward the mountain slope, asking if they're ready to learn a real lesson, gesturing toward the path ahead of them. Pepper and Saffron both declare themselves ready, standing side by side at the base of the climb, their expressions set with real resolve. Thyme cheers them on with real enthusiasm, calling out "Go!" as they start up the mountain pass, waving them off with visible excitement. Partway up, Pepper suddenly panics and Saffron spots something large and unexpected looming ahead of them, her hand gripping Saffron's arm on instinct. Convinced it's a trap, Pepper shouts a warning and orders an immediate attack on the creature, her wand already raised and ready. Pepper fires off a spell, calling out its name as she launches an attack, bright light flaring from her wand. Saffron follows with a fiery spell of her own, sending a burst of flame toward the same target, flame licking outward across the open ground. Thyme calmly explains the actual lesson here is simply to imitate the creature and take a good bath. The massive, startled creature reacts to the sudden attack, clearly confused by the whole encounter, its expression somewhere between startled and annoyed. Pepper storms out of the cottage entirely, refusing to stay a moment longer under her godmother's roof, her steps quick and her mind made up. She marches off down the path with her broom in hand, Carrot trailing close behind her, the cottage growing smaller with every step. "But Pepper, come back," someone calls after her, though she's already made up her mind to leave, the plea trailing off behind her. "No, I'm leaving," she declares, taking off on her broom, headed for the Witches of Eye instead, the wind already catching her cloak. Once airborne, Pepper decides her destination, the land of the setting moons, where Shichimi can help her, her voice carrying clearly over the wind. She asks Carrot to pull out the map and compass, since thick clouds are blocking her view ahead, squinting against the gray haze surrounding them. Sudden turbulence rattles the broom violently, and Pepper shouts for Carrot to hold on tight, her grip tightening on the handle. Lightning flashes around them as the broom loses control, and Pepper cries out in alarm, the broom pitching wildly beneath them. The broom crashes hard through the storm, sending both of them tumbling down into the wilderness below, branches snapping beneath the sudden impact. Pepper and Carrot land in a heap among the tall jungle grass, dazed from the impact, leaves and dirt scattered around them. Carrot stands over Pepper, clearly worried as she slowly starts to come back to her senses, nudging her gently with his paw. A massive, tusked creature looms over them both and Pepper freezes, caught completely off guard, its shadow stretching across the clearing. She tells Carrot, above all, not to panic, even as the huge creature stands in front of them. The creature's face and tusks fill the space beside her as Pepper tries to stay calm, its breath visible in the humid air. She admits she would have preferred learning a few solid attack spells instead of vague advice about staring things down. Walking away afterward, she realizes she's lost her broom and equipment, leaving a long trip ahead of them, her pace slower than before. The two of them cross an open, sunlit desert, with nothing but sand stretching in every direction, heat shimmering faintly along the horizon. Pepper recalls advice about knowing edible plants as a way to find food when nothing else is available, her voice quiet against the wind. Exhausted, she admits it's been days since either of them has eaten anything at all, her legs dragging with every step. Sitting down, she eats a piece of fruit, wishing she'd been taught even a single real potion, juice running down her fingers as she eats. Night falls, and the two of them walk on beneath a sky full of scattered stars, their footsteps the only sound around them. Pepper recalls being told that a true witch of Kyoza needs neither compass nor map, just a starry sky. She admits she would have actually preferred a proper course in reading the stars instead, a tired smile crossing her face. Spotting something ahead in the fading light, she cheers Carrot up, telling him they've finally arrived, pointing toward the horizon ahead of them. Pepper sits down with Shichimi, finishing the whole story of everything that's happened to her so far, her hands gesturing as she talks. Shichimi listens closely, her expression shifting as she takes in everything Pepper has just told her, her head tilting slightly as she listens. She asks Pepper directly whether she's really here simply because her godmothers never taught her anything, her voice gentle rather than judgmental. The two of them settle in together for the night, resting side by side as things quiet down around them, the stars still visible overhead. Pepper tells Carrot he can finally look, clearly excited to show off something new, her hands clasped together in anticipation. She reveals a full Hippia witch's robe, striking a proud pose as she shows it off, the fabric swishing as she turns. She explains it was all that was left in the shop, while she waits for her new robes to arrive. She leans in close to Carrot, asking if the outfit reminds him of anything in particular, her eyebrows raised in genuine curiosity. The two of them arrive at a school built for teaching Hippia witchcraft, tucked into the countryside, the building sign visible near the entrance. Carrot lets out a curious sound as they step through a wooden door into the building, his ears perking up at the new surroundings. Inside, the kitchen area bustles with activity as Carrot looks around at the unfamiliar space, pots and ingredients lining the nearby shelves. A teacher moves down a line of students, approving each one in turn as she inspects their work, her clipboard held steady in one hand. She continues down the line, praising each student's progress one after another, her tone brisk and businesslike throughout. When she reaches Pepper, her expression shifts abruptly, clearly surprised to see her there at all, her pen pausing mid-motion. Pepper tries to explain herself, But she barely gets a word out before being interrupted, her cheeks flushing slightly under the attention. The other students burst into laughter around her, clearly amused at Pepper's expense, hands covering mouths to muffle the giggling. The laughter continues, growing louder as more students join in around her, the sound echoing through the room. Pepper shouts for everyone to stop, her frustration building with each passing second, her fists clenched at her sides. A sudden burst of energy erupts from her, sending a shockwave through the room, the light flashing bright before fading. The impact rattles the space around her, and Pepper walks off afterward, clearly upset, dust settling slowly around her feet. Cayenne suddenly appears, offering to take Pepper off the teacher's hands entirely, her tone light and almost amused. She explains that they happen to be looking for a new student of Causa, and Pepper fits perfectly. The teacher reacts with visible shock, clearly stunned to see Cayenne standing there in front of her, her hand pressed against her chest. The room settles into quiet as the tension from the outburst begins to fade, the students exchanging uncertain glances. Back home, Pepper examines a small carrot-shaped object closely, turning it over in her hands, her thumb tracing along its uneven edges. Carrot watches the object with wide, curious eyes, clearly fascinated by what Pepper is holding, his tail flicking with interest. Pepper looks over at Carrot, considering something as she holds the small object between them, a small smile forming on her face. She studies the carrot-shaped object again, glancing between it and Carrot with a growing grin, her eyes flicking between the two of them. Pepper tells Carrot she has a feeling the two of them are going to get along great together, her tone warm and genuine. She admits she already has a name in mind for whatever it is she's holding, a playful glint in her eye. The quiet forest surrounds them as Pepper waits for Carrot's reaction to her idea, a light breeze stirring the branches around them. Carrot lets out a curious sound in response, and the moment settles into stillness, his tail giving a small, curious flick. Evening settles in as Cayenne and Pepper stand silhouetted against a glowing orange sky, the last light fading behind the trees. Cayenne announces she's heading inside, leaving Pepper to finish burying a pile of failed potions alone, her tone brisk as she turns to leave. She tells Pepper there's no point watching her dig and to come inside once she's done to rest, her voice trailing off toward the door. Pepper asks why they always bury everything instead of trying something different, and Cayenne demands she finish the thought. A wide vegetable patch comes into view, pumpkins scattered unevenly across the disturbed soil, vines curling in unusual tangled directions. The pumpkins themselves look strange and misshapen, clearly affected by something unusual in the ground, their color duller than it should be. Pepper mentions that the ants nearby have been acting oddly too, behaving in strange, erratic ways, her brow furrowing as she watches them. She wonders aloud whether pollution might actually be the root cause of everything she's noticing, her voice hesitant, testing the idea out loud. Night has fallen, and Cayenne's voice cuts through the darkness with a single word. Tradition, the word hanging heavy in the silence. She insists this has been the tradition since the very beginning, refusing to entertain any alternative, her arms crossed, daring Pepper to argue. Pepper repeats the phrase back to herself, suddenly understanding something as she keeps digging, her shovel moving with renewed determination. Under the night sky, she digs faster, urging herself onward as the work continues, sweat beading despite the cold night air. Inside, quiet light spills through a window as Pepper sits alone with an old book, dust motes drifting through the pale light. She reads aloud from it, an old poem describing a golden-locked warrior in flowery, dramatic language, her finger tracing the faded handwriting. The poem continues, describing someone who haunts the writer's chaos and mirrors her own inner storm, her voice softening as she reads on. Pepper steps outside afterward, walking along a cliffside path with the book still in hand, the wind tugging gently at the pages. Cayenne admits that everyone has had failures, insisting she's no longer the person who wrote that poem, her gaze fixed somewhere in the distance. Pepper pulls out another book, this one credited to Thyme, and asks about it directly, holding it up for Cayenne to see. She's told it was simply a mistake from Thyme's youth, and not appropriate to share at Pepper's age, her cheeks coloring slightly at the memory. Pepper considers that response for a moment, clearly amused that neither of them can shake off embarrassment, a small, knowing smile crossing her face. Inside, Pepper raises the subject of the environment again, warning about serious consequences from all this pollution, her arms folded as she makes her case. Cayenne brushes the concern aside, insisting nothing has caused real problems for them so far, her final, closing off the topic. Cumin suddenly pulls out an old guitar, surprised to find it hidden away after so long, blowing a thin layer of dust from its strings. She admits it needs a little tuning, but it still strums well enough to play, plucking a few notes to test the sound. Cumin starts singing a cheerful little tune about Kauza, with Pepper looking on nearby, tapping her foot along to the rhythm. She laughs, admitting she's completely forgotten the lyrics and wonders if her old songbook is buried somewhere. Cayenne announces that they're all in agreement on an update to the rules of Kauza going forward, her hands raised to quiet the group. From now on, she declares they'll sort, crush, and recycle everything, her voice firm and final on the matter. A small bird glides low over an open autumn field, following a path toward a distant windmill. The path continues beneath a tall, golden-leafed tree standing alone in the open countryside, leaves drifting lazily down around it. Pepper settles down beneath the tree, resting comfortably among the fallen autumn leaves, her hat tipped back against the trunk. She offers a bite of food to Carrot and a donkey standing patiently beside them, both of them eager for the treat. A group of wild, pale horses gallops freely across the open field in the distance, their manes catching the afternoon light. The horses charge straight through a shallow stream, kicking up bright splashes of water as they run, droplets catching the light as they scatter. Pepper and Carrot ride along in a small cart pulled by the donkey, watching the horses pass, the cart creaking gently along the uneven ground. As the sun begins to set, Pepper appears lost in thought, picturing a cottage in her mind, the light turning soft shades of orange. She perches on a wooden fence with Carrot below her, surrounded by the colors of autumn, her legs swinging idly over the edge. The moon rises against a deep blue night sky, a contrast to the sunset before it. A cozy cottage sits nestled in the landscape, glowing softly as evening settles in around it, smoke curling faintly from its chimney. Pepper and Carrot walk together toward the cottage entrance, autumn leaves scattered around their feet, their shadows stretching long across the ground. Pepper releases a burst of fiery magic aimed at a large, tusked creature nearby, sparks trailing behind the burst of flame. The creature reacts angrily, its face twisted in an expression of pain or irritation, its tusks lowering toward the source of the blast. Dust and debris kick up around the creature as the spell's impact ripples outward, the ground scorched faintly at the point of impact. Nearby, a large elephant-like creature and a smaller, dragon-like creature both react to the commotion, both creatures backing away in alarm. Pepper stands beside a companion as a glowing blue beam of magic streams between them, light pulsing steadily between their outstretched hands. The donkey continues walking beneath a wide, cloud-streaked sky, steady and unbothered, its ears flicking lazily at passing sound. Pepper stands near a massive sea serpent, the two of them regarding each other calmly, neither one making any sudden movement. Pepper and Carrot pass beneath a stone archway, continuing on their way together, the stones weathered and covered in moss. Carrot investigates a piece of food closely, clearly interested in whatever he's found, turning it over curiously in his paws. Soft clouds drift quietly across an open, untroubled sky above the fields, their shapes shifting slowly overhead. Pepper walks alongside the donkey through the golden autumn field, the day winding down, her boots crunching softly through fallen leaves. Pepper and Carrot finally lie down to rest near the donkey as the outing comes to an end, the last light fading gently around them. Life continues quietly around Pepper's cottage, small creatures moving through the surrounding grass and trees, birdsong drifting faintly through the quiet air. Inside, Pepper stands balanced on a stack of books, reaching for something on a high shelf, one hand steadying herself against the shelf. Books are scattered across the table in front of her as she prepares for the day ahead, her expression focused as she sorts through them. She reads over a contest flyer, then tells Carrot she's ready and it's time to go, her grin wide with anticipation. Pepper asks Cayenne one more time if she's sure she doesn't want to come along with them, hope still lingering in her voice. Cayenne firmly declines, insisting that in Kauza they practice real sorcery, not public spectacles, her chin lifted with quiet certainty. Pepper thanks her for letting her participate, promising she'll win before heading off for the evening, a small wave following her words. She flies off toward Komona as the sun sets behind the distant hills and floating trees, the wind pulling steadily at her hat. The city of Komona comes into view, its walls surrounding a brand new, massive arena, banners fluttering along its towering walls. Inside, the mayor stands at the center of the packed arena, addressing the assembled crowd, his voice carrying easily across the space. The crowd cheers loudly, banners waving as the excitement for the contest builds around them, the noise rising steadily around the stands. Pepper and Carrot arrive just in time, and she wakes him up as the event begins, his eyes blinking open in confusion. The mayor introduces Coriander first, presenting her mastery of the reviving magic of Zombia, a ripple of applause following the introduction. Next, he introduces Chamomile, representing the nature-based magic practiced by the witches of Hippia, polite applause rippling through the stands. A witch named Spirulina appears next, submerged in water, representing the magic of aqua, bubbles rising gently around her as she floats. Pepper reacts with genuine amazement, watching Spirulina float calmly inside her glass enclosure, her hands pressed against the glass. Carrot grows restless beside her, and Pepper begs him to just be patient a little longer, his claws scratching lightly at her sleeve. The mayor moves on to introduce Shichimi, representing the spiritual magic practiced by the witches of A hush falling briefly over the crowd. Carrot's eyes go wide with alarm, clearly reacting to something happening nearby, his whole body tensing at once. Pepper shouts for Carrot to stop as he bolts, sending a splash of water through the arena, water spraying in every direction. The mayor reveals the next mysterious participant, expressing genuine surprise at who it turns out to be, a murmur rippling through the watching crowd. A sudden splash interrupts the announcement, and the mayor asks the participant to return to her place. Pepper chases after Carrot through the arena, calling out for him to come back immediately, her voice rising over the noise of the crowd. Carrot tumbles into the water below, sending another splash rippling across the arena floor, the crowd letting out a collective gasp. Pepper thanks Spirulina for her help before the mayor finally announces her as the last participant, her cheeks still damp from the earlier splash. The crowd applauds warmly as the mayor reveals a special new role reserved just for her, confetti or streamers drifting down around her. A sign nearby confirms her new position as part of the contest's official jury. Pepper says yay as she takes her jury seat. This recap adapts David Revoy's Pepper and Carrot under Creative Commons Attribution 4.0, so subscribe for more real webcomic recaps.